Hey folks, how's it going? Remaster and welcome back to another episode of Cards and Castles 2 Hidden Combos, where today we're jumping back in to, well, Cards and Castles 2, as it is now fully released on all platforms. Steam, iOS, and Android now all have access to play Cards and Castles 2, and it's been quite the renaissance today. At least when I'm recording this, we finished up a stream earlier today. Tons of awesome people online doing great things with this fantastic game. And I'm really excited to see where we're going to be going with this in the future, as we assume more people are going to jump on, want to play, and create their own legacies in Cards and Castles 2, which is really exciting to see. And that means for us here on the YouTube channel, more opportunities to make some great content for you guys, as now the game is fully released to everyone. I feel more confident in releasing more of my upload, or more of my, my guides, my how-tos, essentially content that I've been holding in reserve, as I did not feel the time was right to release such information and release such videos. You know, with the game constantly changing in early access, there were times where we were going weeks on weeks, or not week, well, from week to week, with new changes and balance updates, which threw a lot of things out of proportion. We've been told that for now those will be kind of slowing down. I'm not completely, moving away from. That should be pretty obvious, as this is a fresh game, and there's going to be obviously balance patches here and there to kind of mediate things out. But the idea is that the design of cards are more solid, they're more stable, and I want to create these guide videos to help you guys who might be new to the game, or understand, trying to understand how things work and how things operate, because there are a lot of new mechanics and features to understand and master. I want to give you guys a chance to kind of learn those and help you along that journey. So expect more guide videos coming out soon to the channel. Things like the faction videos to go over all the factions, how-tos on positioning and strategies, and all these other things that are going to help you guys in your journey. However, for now, I don't have those prepped at the moment, so we're going to jump back to Hidden Combos, where we've got a fresh deck for you guys off of today's content. And I am referring to the stream we did earlier today, in which we constructed a new deck and took it across the new Cards and Castles 2 ladder, and some friendly matches today too, with a great win rate on the deck. I kind of want to show you guys what it's all about, how it operates, and how maybe it can help your journey as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this new deck, the deck that I have not named yet, but I will think of a name as soon as we make a transition. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, and here is our list for what we are aptly naming the Death Printer list. I did think of a name by the time we got to it. I was not lying to you guys. And I call this deck the Death Printer because it revolves around a new card, a certain card released actually very recently into Cards and Castles 2, that being the Angel of Death. A 5 gold legendary card in the Necromancer faction that reads Death Strike. When this slays an enemy unit, resurrect it under your control. Now, it's quite the expensive lad, quite the big lad, and for those who maybe aren't fortunate enough to buy the latest Battle Pass in CNC2, you might not have this card right away. However, that's not to say that you can't make this card. And then, for that, we turn our attention to Spectral Rider. For those who don't know, Rider is a charge unit, meaning it can attack straight away, and when it deals damage, it summons an undead unit with cost equal to this unit's attack power. Now, that might seem a little weird, so let me kind of explain what that would do. Essentially, it would attack a unit, and for its current attack, it spawns a corresponding gold unit. So, for instance, if you look up 3 gold units in the Necromancer faction, let me just make sure I have this set here. It has the chance to produce any one of these units, just at its raw base stat line. Bone Drake, Magician, etc., etc. However, as you up that attack power, you have the chance to spawn higher, more valuable units. And, well, if you produce a 5 attack power Spectral Rider, you have the ability to produce the Witch Doctor, Necro Commander Zethik, and more importantly, the Angel of Death. All of these cards, fantastic in their own right. Zethik less so if you don't have a Tombstone package. He just kind of sits there as a 2/4, which isn't ideal, but the other two cards are fantastic. Witch Doctor can produce large amounts of debuffs, and the Angel of Death, well, it can steal opponents' cards. So the idea behind this deck is to give Ryder that extra attack boost in ninjas, or alongside the ninja faction, with cards like the Shadow Katana as well as the Dojo, to give Ryder just a little bit more of that extra boost, that extra, kick that it needs to become a more powerful unit in order to, basically just mass produce Angels of Death. Unfortunately, this isn't always the easiest case, because it's been stated before that legendaries are harder to pull out of random pools than other cards. So more likely than not, you are summoning cards like the Witch Doctor, but rest assured, we have pulled Angel of Death in our gameplays today. There have been consistent Angels of Death here and there. So that's not likely to say that you'll never pull Angel, because, well, look at the pool as it is. It's pretty small. It's really tight to 3 cards. So if you get more control over what you're grabbing, because, who doesn't like a bit more control in their RNG, then I would assume that you're in a really powerful spot. However, to facilitate the strategy here, this alone does not win games. So we have a kind of backup strategy to this, and that being Screams of the Fallen, the huge undead, or the huge necromancer spell that would deal 1 damage to a random enemy for each friendly unit that has died in this game. And so because we're summoning things off of Ryder, the idea became, well, where else can we summon creatures? Things like War Elephant came to mind. Things like the rats, which can swarm out very tiny bodies very quickly, all fueling your Screams of the Damned, or Screams of the Fallen, excuse me. I want to say damned for some reason. Regardless, this whole deck is just essentially based around summoning, which we're doing with Spectral Rider, Elephant, with boosted stats from things like Dojo and Katana, and just using them to further power our big Screams of the Fallen, which ideally is going to be, very, very high powered and deal a complete, wipe to the board, and hell, even probably win you the game. That's the hope. And that's not to say that there isn't a bad strategy to just run the swarm aspect either. We actually found the swarm elements of this deck to be very useful and very strong in their own right. Things like Dark Magician, the Infestation, building up all of these massive swarms of cards to overwhelm your opponent, can also be useful as well, depending on how you might have drawn into certain cards during the match. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and break down all of the individual pieces of the deck real quick to show you guys what each piece is here for and how it can help you. When we're starting off here at the end with Brewery. Brewery is part of the Rat package that we have in this deck, alongside the cards Infestation and Rat King, as well as Hidden in the Walls, actually. I always forget Hidden in the Walls is low over there. But all of these cards are essentially your rat producers. They will help bring out small rat bodies, which are being used as fuel for your Screams of the Fallen. Following that, we've got Mooncaster, which can be used as bounds, so it can actually protect cards like Spectral Rider, like Elephant, or more like Kaiju. We found Kaiju as a great little extra tool in this deck to provide a big, scary stat line alongside of our rats, and that will make sense more in a second. But Mooncaster is here to also protect some of your more valuable units in the form of replacing, bouncing them back to your hand. Katana, we mentioned already, a huge part of this deck to give Mordok or Spectral Rider that 2 attack power for him to run out, move, and hit things for 5 damage, hopefully producing your Angels of Death. Rat King as part of our Rat package. Dark Magician as a backup to Dojo. What I mean by this is, Dark Magician is quite the powerful tool. It could be a really nice swarm producer, producing those 2 zombies for each unit slain. However, 1 attack doesn't really cut it too much. So, alongside the cards like Dojo or even Shadow Katana, you can make this guy into a 3/5, which is more likely to get at least 1 or 2 kills before it dies off on the board, meaning you're most likely to get a couple of zombies to your side. More likely, about 4 zombies, I would say. But again, not always the case, as people sometimes like to instantly remove Dark Magician without giving him the chance to do much damage. But hey, if that's the case, then you're golden. And it's going to be hard for your opponent to do so, because 5 HP is not exactly an easy stat line to eliminate that early in the game. Following this, you've got the Dojo, one of the stars of the deck. to give your big powerhouses like Elephant, Magician, and Spectral Rider that +2 boost. You kind of need that. Following that, Forbidden City, summoning 3 random buildings. This is more likely in here to pair up nicely with our Hidden in the Walls as well as our Kaiju, making the Kaiju less expensive, producing more rats off of each building. And plus, Forbidden City can help you gain extra dojos, extra other utility buildings like Merchant's Estate for some extra ramp, or, you know, School of Magic to reduce the cost of spells. There's a lot of good buildings in the pool that you could pull from Forbidden City, so it actually is quite useful in a deck that wants to produce rats and can get some cool building benefits. Infestation we talked about as part of our rat package. Squire is in here as an extra draw tool. As it reads, you can draw a card for each friendly unit that has died in the turn, so if you have a rat swarm thanks to Infestation or Rat King or Hidden in the Walls, you can make some rat trades to essentially quickly draw out your big, more valuable cards like Screams of the Fallen. The idea of this deck is to find Screams ASAP so you can have it build up and be ready to use. And so Squire is a great way to kind of thin your deck to get to that point. Following that, you got Hidden in the Walls as, like we said, another rat producer, rat swarm generator. Omaiwa as a direct removal here to deal with more larger and bigger threats. Omaiwa has certainly been a valuable card recently, and people are kind of picking this up more and more with the appearance of big, scary threats and targets that are kind of being thrown out there. So Omaiwa, definitely a strong card to have. Soldiers in here is a bit of a weird option. It was my last kind of card inclusion in here, and I threw this in here to make parts of my swarm a bit better. Things like the rats and hell, even cards like the Spectral Rider, Elephant, just a little bit better to keep alive on the board. And you know, I just thought it worked out pretty well in the games that we saw him come out. But he is kind of a weird option, and one that's kind of hanging out as of now as kind of a easily replaceable option if you want something else in the deck. Next up, you got Angel, the reason that this deck is being made. I figured why not include him in here as a base card to at least have him in the deck. He could also benefit off of the dojo buffs and become an even scarier and long-lasting threat, which he can use, you know, can steal more things and, you know, use them for your own nefarious plans. So why not have him in here? Elephant and Rider going alongside as sort of the targets for this whole dojo buffing scenario. These guys are going to be what you want to boost, so you can keep them around longer to deal damage and produce more units, which eventually go to your Screams of the Fallen. Like you mentioned, this is the powerhouse, this is the game ender. You'll do all the damage in the world if you can pull off your swarm successfully with this, and most likely win the game. And then, of course, like you mentioned, we've got King Kaiju, which follows up as sort of an extra kind of beefy stat line for the deck. And with all the city and building stuff you're doing anyways, there's a good chance this guy's going to be very, very cost reduced down to like maybe, you know, 3 or 4 gold. And in that case, an early Kaiju can be a problem for your opponent. Not a lot of ways that you can get 12 HP off the board in an instant in those turn 5, turn 4 stages. But with that, that is our deck covered. Most of everything here, well, all of everything here, excuse me, I've covered. So without further ado, let's stop talking about the actual deck, and let's go ahead and show you guys some gameplay of it and show you how this thing operates on the battlefield. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump in. Game number 1, me against good old Death's Advocate. If I could properly get it, there you go. Little technical stuff, always annoying. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this matchup started. Me versus DA. Now, DA was rocking the undead druid list he's been using for quite some time now. This is quite a powerful take on the classic undead. There's some good stuff in here, walking around with beasts and Lashwill and Maldron and all those fun things. So we open up pretty strongly with a brewery turn 2. Got our rat swarm going. He produces the wolf at the bottom there. Going to start building up his beast. Getting the early dojo down as quickly as possible to try and snag the early buff on Rider. We do get it, as you can see there. And now our Rider is in prime position to utilize some strong buffs. Following this, the Headless Horseman comes out on turn 3. Interesting use of the Horseman, by the way. I think he's mentioned before that people kind of sleep on the Horseman as a viable card. I'm not too sure about this myself. I would like to get more of a shot in with it, but he uses it to good effect here. Puts some early pressure on me at turn 4, so we are forced to, or turn 3, excuse me. And by turn 4, we're forced to play another brewery here and kind of navigate some rats and peasants around a little bit. Our other brewery dies, our original brewery dies, so we're now forced to use the second one. Says that the second headless horseman, which connects into our rat, the other horseman, of course, is going to pop into the dojo, which kind of works in our favor. We don't want the extra boosting on our rider, so we just want it to kind of quietly fade away for a second there. And meanwhile, the rats here, peasants, all trading to make Squire a bit more effective here. That big draw 3, getting another Squire into another Rat King, which we will play the Rat King. We do need the support to kind of ease up this pressure on our face here. He goes down, eliminates the Squire with the Horseman play, and ends up with a nice little tombstone line here. Big effect here with the corpse explosion, cleaning up most of my board, I believe. Yeah, everything kind of cleaned up in an instant there, which is a little annoying, but I think, you know, not too badly, because we can actually use that wolf to pop into the rider. He does have an owlbear for the turn 6, which is fine by me. It's a big body. We have ways to kind of stave that off. And here's where we get the big combo. Rider comes down, turn 7. We hit into the wolf, to produce the Angel of Death. Now, this is an interesting position for him. He has to remove the Angel of Death somehow, but also has to kind of remove the Spectral Rider, because now he recognizes the Rider can produce angels, and that's going to be a threat. These angels have Death Strike. I can easily, you know, use this angel to connect into the owlbear, steal it, and it becomes mine, which is quite the feat I don't think that he wants to see. So, in response here, we see the Joff get played here. He only manages to nab 2 treasure off of Joff. A little unfortunate there. I think he mentioned that he was going to use this to a bit of a greater effect if he had more treasure on him. It did not really happen here, but regardless, he's going to charge him with the Joff. Joff connects with the Angel, which makes sense. He destroys that, produces a Joff of his own, uses the Thorndrake for backup, and the Owlbear connects into face for big 7 damage. We pull out Screams, which is fantastic, but meanwhile, we're focused on kind of clearing up the board a little bit. Omaewa is going to go ahead and pop the Owlbear. The Mordok, or the Spectral Rider, going to click into the Tombstone, producing the Witch Doctor. And that's kind of what I mean by, you know, you'll see Witch Doctor a bit more often than Angel. Despite Angel being one of 3 cards in the pool, you're more likely pulling Witch Doctors off of Spectral Rider's attack than anything. But regardless, Witch Doctor is still a great card here. And now, as you can see, DA unable to really reasonably respond to my board presence here. We're going to Omaewa the second Owlbear as well. The Rider producing another Witch Doctor here. The original going to clear the Tombstones. And Tombstone clearing, of course, in these matchups is very important. If you have or can afford the luxury of removing Tombstones, please try to take it against undead decks who create Tombstones, because more likely than not, they have them in there for a reason. So cleaning up the Tombstones was important here. He summons Maldrin, knowing that I'm out of Omaewa's, thinking that he might have me here. However, we have a lot of presence on the board already, and a lot of presence in his face here, so we're going to simply reduce with the Witch Doctor. Maldrin shrinks down to a really small 2-3. Enough for Mooncasher to clear. Spectral Rider comes in. We katana the remaining damage, and that is game. Really effective stuff there from the deck all around. It pulled off pretty much everything that I wanted to do with the deck, aside from Screams, which we could have gotten to, but you know, we had the opportunity to end game right there, so why not end the game? But yeah, good stuff in producing the Angel of Death and kind of using that as a foundation for our Swarm to march in and take the W. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in to game number 2. Alright, and game number 2 saw us take on Bamser. I believe a newer face to the Cards and Castles 2 scene, as I have not really seen him around before. But regardless, we have a fair start here. Infestation into the Omaewa and the Elephant. Not the strongest, but still a fair, decent start here. We can do stuff for the Infestation. We can Omaewa if things get too bad here. And things get pretty ugly from the start. Fire Drake off of the Rip turn 1, even using the metal to get it out onto the board here. And I'm thinking, I'm a little worried for fire decks. And so Mythlore comes in turn 2 for some draw, makes the Fire Drake stronger, and yeah, that's going to be a bit of a bitch to remove. I go for the Infestation here because I want to try and block this Fire Drake. I'm thankful that he doesn't have the explosive that he used to have, so he can't take out this Swarm all at once here, but he does start pounding and removing cards. From there, we put out the peasant to try and help mitigate the damage. He soul steals his peasant, making the imp a little bit stronger here, and actually takes out these rats with a combination of flare and fire drake, making his dragon stronger, and we're not looking pretty good already. I go for the war elephant turn 5. I could have gone angel of death here, but I had a feeling that we might need the bodies from from elephant, excuse me, a bit more. And unfortunately, he hits me again with a buff. The plea of the right just bringing the +2/+2 to the elephant, forcing me just to take the one Kunoichi and passing back. We use that Kunoichi trading with the fire drake here, and for now setting up some defenses. Dojo to try and empower the elephant or the angel here. We do manage to get the elephant hit there. Goes for the Joft and the Strength Will combo here to actually take out my Dark Magician, which again, unfortunately, is, I just don't have much in the hand to deal with this right now, and there's a lot coming at me. Spell Surge clears my depot as well for the extra, extra stamp of approval on his part, I guess, if you want to call it that, and regardless, we are forced to go back on defense. Another elephant and peasant. Dojo creates one last buff for the Angel of Death before dying, and Spectral Rider pops out as he stole the Spectral Rider from my depot. Not the greatest pull for me because I don't have ways to really deal with counter swarms like this, so we're not looking too good. The Spectral Rider pops in, produces a Skeletal Squire for him. He actually connects into our elephant with the Magic Eater, and it becomes, we transform into a Rat King. I go for my own Spectral Rider at this point. I try to just create more bodies on the board to counteract his, whatever he's doing here, and hoping he doesn't have a, big burn like Blaze to kind of equalize this board state or actually push it more in his favor. We get the Dark Magician from our own Spectral Rider, though, which is fantastic. He baptisms my elephant, putting it into his hand and summoning another Spell Surge, aka Magic Eater. I'm confusing a lot of names. I'm so used to calling them out by their C1 names on camera. But regardless, here we're going to go ahead and put our Dark Magician into the Squire to produce 2 zombies. We saw the Mooncaster trading with, I believe, the Joff there. Omaiwa plus the Forbidden City to kind of reestablish our board a bit. Not the best buildings, though, from this scenario. We don't have any Frost, so the Frost building is useless. School of Magic is nice for spell reduction. School of Time is neat if we're in an advantageous position, but we need to kind of get to that point. So School of Time kind of just hanging out dead here for a minute. Meanwhile, Bamster is going to go ahead and just kind of try to mitigate this swarm. He played the Firestorm that you saw there to kind of kill some things, but not a whole lot. But regardless, he doesn't make it, very hard to defend here. I do go for a bit of a weird play. Admittedly, I go for the connection with the clean trade rather than making a value trade with a Dark Magician, but I guess in my mind I knew that it was dying anyway to the elephant, so I just wanted to do the work for him, I guess. Regardless, we put the Hidden in the Walls down. We commit more Swarm to the board here, essentially showing off the Swarm potential this deck does have with Hidden in the Walls. Goes for a Craxus play, which is fine. We're going to respond by simply kind of removing some other options here. He did not attack with the elephant either, though, which is a bit interesting. I'm not sure if he understood that he could have attacked with it, but regardless, make some trades and make some more room as we kind of connect into more things, damaging the castle a bit more, and of course playing the Angel of Death to run interception on this Craxus. The Salahar Soldier as well, just kind of beef up any swarm parts, but we wanted to hit Angel of Death, we did not. But unfortunately for our opponent here, he's low on resources, going to try and Divine Knowledge for any sort of support here. Fire Drake, Pegacorn, but that is pretty much the game here. He's surrounded on all sides by some zombies. Again, not really attacking with the Craxus, and I'm not sure as to why. Rat King comes in, gets a big boost from how many rats are on the board here. Shattuck Katana onto our Angel here, swooping in and delivering the remaining blow to his castle. Beautiful stuff there. Beautiful demonstration of the swarm potential this deck has here. Again, could have been maybe useful for Scream to the Fallen, but we did not see it in that matchup. Regardless, another fantastic one for the Bucks as we move into game number 3. All right, and game number 3 saw us take on Materato. I feel like I'm just now pronouncing that correctly, but regardless, we jump into a friendly with him to engage in a bit of combat with Viking Pirate. The first time I think we've seen Well, actually, no, that's not true. Never mind. I was gonna say the first time we haven't seen Necromancer, but again, that was we played Warlock Crusader in the last matchup, so I'm speaking out of my ass here. Regardless, we're moving in here for some peasant on peasant in the early game stages here, which is fine. We don't really draw anything major, so we go for the Infestation turn 3 to try and pollute his deck, get some more bodies on board. The pretty standard stuff for how this deck operates. He goes for a big Berserker play here, though, turn 4, which is interesting. Going to kill my rat for sure, which I'm not too happy about. We're going to respond kindly with the Salahar Soldier, which is going to be a great way for us to kind of trade stats with this big hunk. And thankfully, he does go for the Salahar Soldier instead of the rat here, which is beautiful. And we get a Yarm Lightning in response. A bit aggressive on the Yarm Lightning, but I don't think our opponent had anything useful to take it out. Or take out the rat, which is a bit interesting. Regardless, we set up the dojo and the brewery here and the downtime to kind of get some early buffs going. And we see in response a penguin and a peasant. We make the easy rat trade with the peasant here. Bounce back the Skeletal Squire for some draw purposes to try and just stall the penguin. We're not too concerned about it, but we do know that penguin being in deck means that Frost is also not far behind. He does dispel the dojo, which is annoying off of the mana core there, which is unfortunate. Does end up kind of killing the dojo with the turn counter, but regardless, we still try to produce a solid board to defend here. The peasants, the rats, the Dark Magician all kind of come up and block. He goes for Man the Cannons, though, which is, again, annoying. It does destroy my Swarm very easily here, and actually gets him a clear board, healing off my depot as well. Now, this is the problem that I think the deck does end up facing in games. The fact that I'm dealing with a Swarm deck, if I'm running into AoE responses like Yarm Lightning, Man the Cannons, etc., my Swarm will die. It will crumble. It's not really supported by massive global buffs like Battle Cry or things like that. So when we're running into AoE like that, it's very problematic. And we're going to see here that continuing trend of running into AoE cards and how they are not so helpful with the Swarm plan. I mean, you want the Swarm to die, yes, because of Screams, but you also don't want to die before you have a chance to operate Screams. You know what I'm saying? Regardless, we throw the second dojo out, we run the peasant for some more interceptions and pass it back. He steals a rider, the second time that we saw a rider stolen off of my depot, which is a bit biased, I think. But regardless, we see the Rat King get traded into here from a combination of the Mana Core and the two peasants, leaving us to deal with the Spectral Rider, a peasant, and a Bone Drake. And I'm not too happy about it. I have to Omaewa the rider, as unfortunate as that is, even though it is weakened, I just can't handle it. I go for the rat trade here to get more value off of the Squire draw here. We do pull Soldier and City, which is not bad. Beautiful stuff there. Soldier catching the dojo buff. And here's where Matt activates his strategy here. Hall of Frost, or the, Hall of Winds, whatever we're calling it. That is going to, of course, empower his Bone Drake to deal double damage against Frost targets, which, we haven't had Frost Blast for my card. It's a perfect trade there. However, we have an even better position now with this extra hall in play. Dojo, Depot, all kind of reducing the cost of our King Kaiju by a significant portion, and this guy becomes very easy to summon alongside the Salahar Soldier, as you see here, granting him both and the Peasant a buff to make sure all of that value is used. Kaiju comes in, cleans off Matt's Supply Depot, granting us the Behemoth, which I thought was an interesting choice for the deck. Until I realized what he was doing. This is his Doomship list. This is one that kind of takes advantage of the Frost double damage and dealing big sniper damage from the back to try and kill. However, we have, so now we have a game plan, or now we know the game plan he's acting up with, so we have to kind of move in quickly as possible. Another Frost Roll comes down, though, from Matt to freeze off everything on the board here, holding it in place, meaning my Kaiju can't move to deal more damage. But in response, I just throw out more cards that will generate us some swarms. Dark Magician, Elephant, all coming in here into the second Frost Whirl, which I believe does produce you up the Snow Owl, like you see there, from the Elephant. He responds to Southport Slayer and the Cannoneer. Again, the Cannoneer indicating to me that he wants to use the Frost Sniper game plan to try and kill me from afar. We're going to go ahead and Mooncaster our Kaiju back into our hand here, removing the Frost, getting that 8 damage onto face. And in response, we'll just play the Angel of Death. He operates Man the Cannons yet again, clearing most of what's on my board here. Southport Slayer running to the back to chip away to at the Snowman Fort and another Yarn Blank to actually clear off most of the board here. He will eliminate the School of Magic, which I think was a smart play. He does realize that I'm running a lot of spell stuff in ninjas and necromancers, so it makes sense. And then we, of course, go for the King Kaiju play. King Kaiju back on the board once again, trying to actually run at our church in the back. That's why he's not moving forward, kind of doing his own thing there. But regardless, we are in a great position. He's going to go ahead and Frost Blast my Snowman Fort, get a big shot with the Cannoneer there you see for 8 damage. So at this point I knew I had to either kill him this turn or it was going to be game over. But thankfully, we are in game over territory. Spectral Rider comes out, trades with the Joth as you see here. And of course, the Katana on the Kaiju is going to push that all the way into his face to deliver the 9 remaining damage. Beautiful stuff there as we illustrate why King Kaiju is quite a good pick for this deck. The swarm stuff that you're running alongside with the buildings can help him become very cheap and very accessible early on to deal some massive crazy damage. I don't think that got out too earlier though, which is unfortunate. But still, my point remains the same. You guys kind of get the idea as to why Kaiju is operating there. And overall, I think we've seen 3 incredible games today. Beautiful demonstration by Death Printer and showing you why I think it's a pretty good deck, pretty interesting pick, especially in a field and landscape like this where swarm removal is not at an all-time high. I mean, there is AoE, but I think still players are trying to pick up on that fact about what they need in their decks. But I mean, you know, playing DA and map people who have played already and have that knowledge ahead of time still kind of, you know, were unsure about how to combat some elements of this deck. So overall, a beautiful deck and one that I'm proud to kind of showcase here. But I think that is where we're going to close out the video. So let's go ahead and do just that. Alright folks, and that is going to do it for today's video. The Death Printer, of course, being shown off in its full force. I do really love this deck. I know we made a video on, you know, messing around with Spectral Rider before and how we can go with that, but I do think this new Angel of Death kind of brings a new perspective on that and creates a really fun possibility, as well as going with the Scream's direction and having all of this summon stuff being thrown in here. I think it's a fun little different take on it. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. And while you're down there, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and you know, support the channel as we are continuing to grow here on the platform. You know, every day that we can. We're gonna make up for some time though, but don't worry about that. We'll do it. But yes, feel free to subscribe as we've got more content coming in the future, more guide videos, more deck videos, more gameplay, a lot of stuff lined up for you guys. So feel free to hop aboard now. And yeah, with that being said, we will see you guys next time. So until then, take care, stay safe, and most importantly, stay gaming.